Hello learners, welcome back to the course on learning and development in organization. We move to a new lecture in the problem identification and solution design module, where today we'll be looking into need identification. So whenever you talk about learning and development, the first aspect any organization would look into is need identification. Whether you actually have a requirement, whether individual working in an organization, let's say over many years, is not able to perform, or is suboptimal in terms of performance, or is not able to concentrate on the job today, or maybe is not able to perform like he or she used to do maybe a couple of years before. All these parameters, could it be physical, mental, whatever are the lacking, whatever are the problems, everything comes out in a proper need analysis. So need identification acts as the cornerstone, it acts as the fundamental block of learning and development. So today we'll try to see more into the aspects that govern need identification. I am Dr. Abraham Cyril Issac. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Business, Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati. Now when you look into need identification, today's topic would revolve around the theme, wisdom is not a product of schooling, but of the lifelong attempt to actually acquire it. So if you think, you will understand the relevance of this particular thought. When you are looking into need identification, let us understand it in the beginning itself. It's a systematic process of uncovering gaps between the current and the desired performance levels in employee skills, knowledge and competency. So many a time, even during our discussions with respect to the job requirements, be it in the NPTEL course in labor welfare and industrial relations, or even in the OB course, organizational behavior course running in the NPTEL platform, we have discussed a lot about the possibilities of the task, duties, responsibilities in an organization, in a job, in an organization, and the knowledge, skills and abilities, and what happens when the mismatch happens. So when you talk about need identification, you should understand it is all about the employee skills. It's all about the knowledge. It's all about the competencies. And if you are falling short of it, there is a need to upgrade it. There is a need to enhance whatever skills you are having. Case in point, the moment you see that, whatever buzz that is happening, or whatever is going on in industry today, is because of this tech development, because of AI, ML. So there is a need that has come up, and people are very much crazy after going for understanding more about the emerging technologies, more about the new technologies that are coming up. So there is a classic need. So an organization should understand what is its objective, and based on the objective, it is not able to perform with respect to the employees that are the actual assets of the organization, then it has to go for need identification. Let's understand the importance of need identification. We see that need identification is all about, strategic alignment. The moment you talk about need identification, it directly ties training efforts to the organization's strategic goals. So whether the objective is to increase the operational efficiency, or support a digital transformation, or even, let's say, improve the compliance or enhance the customer service, identifying the learning needs, it ensures that every training initiative contributes to the broader business vision. So this alignment typically reinforces the value of learning and development as a strategic business partner rather than a support function. So this is where the strategic alignment comes into picture. So when you are looking into strategic alignment, as I mentioned in my previous session, it's more of a long-term perspective. It's not a mere tactics that you are seeing. The moment you are having strategic alignment, you see that it is a long-term perspective. So basically you see that the strategic alignment is signifying the need identification. Another important factor which underscores the relevance of need identification is resource optimization. Training budgets and employee time are finite resources. There is no doubt about it. You do not have the virtue, or you do not have the luxury of unlimited resources, and that is unfortunate, but that is the truth. So specifically, when you are looking into typical aspects of need identification, by prioritizing needs based on business impact, based on urgency and existing capability gaps, organizations can optimize the use of their L&D investment. So this focused approach enables leaders to channel efforts into high priority areas that yield the greatest return on investment. So rather than dispersing resources across low impact interventions, this will be the greatest return on investment. Now, the third significant factor would be employee engagement and retention. So we have discussed in length and breadth about employee engagement and retention. So employees, typically, if you think about it, you might be an employee in an organization. Think about you as a first-hand example. Employees are more likely to engage with training that is relevant to their job roles and career paths. Rather than giving some random training, they would be more interested if it is actually related to them. So that could be the way to go ahead. A robust needs assessment, I would say, leads to personalized and purposeful learning experiences. So when employees see a clear link between training and their day-to-day work or future growth, they are motivated to participate, apply their learning and remain committed to the organization. So these are the typical aspects that underscores the importance of need identification. When you are looking into the steps in the need identification process, you have to understand that we start with defining the organizational goals. The process actually begins here. The process begins with a deep understanding of the organization's, I will call it, the strategic direction. This is where it all begins. What are the key business challenges or growth opportunities? How can workforce capabilities be developed to support these goals? Conduct a job analysis. This happens to be the next process. Each role within the organization is examined to identify the key tasks, the key responsibilities and competencies it requires. So this typically forms the baseline against which current employee performance is measured. The third aspect is assessing the current capabilities. So when you're talking about assessment of the current capability, this involves collecting data through a variety of tools such as employee surveys, interviews, observation, performance reviews and assessment. So this step helps to understand existing strengths and areas needing development. The fourth step in the need identification process is the identification of skill gaps. When you talk about this identification, by comparing the actual performance, let's say actual and desired. So there's a comparison that's going on between this actual and desired performance. Organizations can identify specific skill, knowledge or behavioral gaps. So these gaps become the basis for developing targeted training initiatives. Then you have the prioritization of training needs. Not all identified gaps require immediate attention, and this is where you have to optimize, you are trying to optimize the entire factors. Needs are prioritized based on their urgency, strategic importance and potential impact on the performance and productivity. Then you start to develop a training plan. The moment you see with priorities set, organizations can now design a training roadmap. This plan outlines learning objectives, it outlines the learning methodologies, be it, let's say, something like online modules. Online modules could be one factor. There could be, something as important as workshops, or something like the regular coaching and mentoring programs. So timelines, the responsible stakeholders, all these aspects are typically taken into consideration. And to conclude the discussion on the steps in the need identification process, I would say the relevance is always enhanced by measurement. Anything which you cannot measure, you cannot improve. So measure impact. Post-training evaluation is crucial. It is vital. Pre and post assessments, feedback and performance data help measure the effectiveness of training and inform the future L&D strategies. Now we look into the different levels of need analysis specifically. We start with the most macro level, which is the organizational level. It focuses on the big picture. What is the big picture? That is what the question is. It assesses workforce readiness in light of the strategic initiatives, in light of the market shifts, and if you ask me, even the long-term capability building. Second level of need analysis is the team or task level. So please understand the relevance of team as well as task. It examines the functional or departmental skills required to meet specific goals. It identifies processes, inefficiencies or collaboration gaps that could be improved with targeted learning. And then you have individual level. At individual level, it centers on the unique development needs of employees. So data from performance reviews, 360-degree feedback and even career planning tools help shape personalized learning paths. Now let's quickly look into the techniques for effective need identification in learning and development. We start with the first and the foremost, job analysis and role profiling. It is all about, these are, complex HR jargons, but you understand that it's all about analyzing the job descriptions. Job descriptions, the responsibilities. To determine whether the competencies required matches and what are the competencies in the first place. So compare these requirements with current employee capabilities to identify the gaps. This is what the entire process or technique of job analysis and role profiling is. The second important technique for effective need identification in L&D is skills and competency assessment. Use online assessments, practical evaluations or standardized tests to objectively measure employees' technical and soft skills. So this helps pinpoint specific areas that need the development. Then finally, we move to the third technique, which is surveys and questionnaires. Distribute surveys to employees and managers to gather self-assessments and perception of training needs. So when you are looking into surveys, these questions can focus on perceived strengths, areas for improvement and desired training topics. Other significant aspects when it comes to effective need identification in L&D is performance review and feedback. Leverage the regular performance appraisal and let's say something like 360-degree feedback if you have, to identify areas where employees are underperforming or could improve. So combine self-assessment with managerial input for a holistic view. Then you have observation and job shadowing. Directly observe employees in the work environment to identify inefficiencies, skill gaps or training opportunities. Job shadowing can reveal best practices and areas needing support. And sixth aspect would be the focus group and the related interviews. Conduct focus groups or one-on-one interviews with employees, managers and stakeholders to discuss the challenges, the aspirations and the training needs. So this is essentially, if you ask me, a qualitative approach. Not going deep into qualitative approach, but when you look into the research perspective, there are some aspects which would actually require qualitative approach, and a quick discussion on that. When you look into research, and majority of you might be aware of the research pattern that happens in organizational behavior or behavioral theory or human resource management, etc., are all latent variables pertaining to that. We have quantitative as well as qualitative research. So when do we use qualitative research? When do we use this type of method is when you need to know the exact knowledge. You need to identify the exact aspects. Let's say the moment you put a survey to a lot of people, let me take an example to make you understand this. If I want to know the impact of a strategic decision that is going to take place in an organization for shifting, let's say, a strategic unit, a business unit from, let's say, India to Sri Lanka, then technically who will be aware of the decision? The board or the director board or the entire decision making CEO and the coterie around that, they will be aware of that. So I should actually do an exploratory study with respect to them rather than floating a survey to the 10,000 workforce that are working there. Similarly, if I want to study the working conditions or the workplace safety that is in the organization, maybe workplace safety and hygiene in the organization, then I should not actually go for a qualitative study. I should be surveying. I should go for a quantitative study for the larger population. Maybe I can go with a sample, but the thing is that I will prefer a quantitative research. So each of these branches of research have their own advantages and disadvantages. Quantitative research is like a blanket. It puts a lot of things beneath it, things might not come out. Whereas qualitative research is the way to go forward if you want to know exact reasons or exact aspects that actually influence or cause something or whatever be your research topic be. So focus group discussions and interviews are mainly pertaining to the qualitative approach. Other important aspects are typically analysis of organizational goals and industry trends. When you're looking into analysis of organizational goals and industry trends, align training needs with strategic business objectives and anticipated changes in technology or market demand. So this ensures training remains relevant and forward-looking. We also see there can be aspects of customer and client feedback. Analyze the feedback, the complaints or recurring issues from customers to identify skills or knowledge gaps that impact the service quality. And then there is predictive analytics and data analysis. Use the HR analytics and the performance data to identify emerging skill gaps and predict the future training needs. So this proactive approach helps organizations stay ahead of the market changes typically. Now let's quickly look into the best practices for need identification. Best practices for need identification, we start with combine multiple methods. Use a blend of qualitative and quantitative techniques for a comprehensive understanding. That's why I gave a small introduction into quantitative and qualitative research just now. Try to involve multiple stakeholders, engage employees, engage managers and even customers for diverse perspectives. Prioritize the needs. Focus on gaps that have the most significant impact on organizational goals and performance. Set smart objectives. I hope in most of my classes I repeat this. Set smart objectives, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and time bound. This will ensure that you get to those objectives. Regular review. update the needs identification process periodically to keep pace with all the organizational and market changes. So as we discussed in the introductory video, I'll try to give a practical orientation also in most of my classes. So as part of that, let's look into a case study. A case study which details on the training need analysis, and the organization is Bank of Baroda. Let's look into the background. Bank of Baroda, one of India's leading public sector banks, has a rich history of investing in employee training and development. So, recognizing the dynamic nature of the banking sector, the bank has institutionalized a comprehensive training need analysis, TNA, to ensure its workforce remains adept and aligned with organizational goals. What are the need identification process? The bank's training need analysis process is multifaceted, involving inputs from various organizational levels. So you look into the top-down approach, you have typically strategic goals alignment at the corporate level. Strategic objectives are reviewed to determine training areas that support business growth and adaptability. At the middle level, you have the zonal and regional inputs. Zonal heads convene meetings with regional and branch managers to gather insights on the training requirements based on operational challenges and performance metrics altogether. And also you will see a bottom-up approach where branch reviews, appraisal, audits, feedback, employees input, as I just mentioned. And we see that when you look into the branch level assessment, we also understand, when we look into the branch level assessments, we also understand this analyzing employer feedback or performance reviews or appraisals is there, reviewing audit and inspection reports are there, considering customer feedback and complaints are there, evaluating the business plans and targets are there. So employee feedback is all about directing inputs from employees regarding their training needs are also considered. It ensures a bottom-up approach altogether. Now, when you look into the implementation part of all these, typical aspects, it was based on the consolidated inputs. There was an annual training calendar that was developed. So, an annual training calendar that developed looked into various training centers, various training programs, etc. Customized the training programs like tailored to address specific needs ranging from technical, banking, financial operations to soft skills, even to leadership development. All these aspects were typically identified and implemented. So the outcome was, to quickly say, the structured TNA approach, training need analysis approach, has led to enhanced employee competence. Targeted training has improved employee performance and service delivery. There is alignment with strategic goals, organizational goals. So training programs are closely linked to the bank's strategic objectives, ensuring relevance and effectiveness. And finally, you have improved customer satisfaction. So well-trained employees contribute to better customer interactions and satisfaction typically. So in this particular session, I try to give you an input about what is the most important aspect to start with learning and development, and it is not other than training need analysis, the TNA. So when it comes to learning and development, it's a learning need analysis. So need analysis is vital. You have to understand what is the shortfall, what is the mismatch, what is the margin of error that is happening there. You look into the task, duties and responsibilities that job demands or warrants, what the individual is having on the other hand, his or her knowledge, skills and abilities. So how effectively you are able to match these KSAs and TDRs. The entire philosophy of need analysis hovers around this. If you feel there is a shortfall, there is a mismatch, there is a lacuna, there is some problem that has to be mitigated, then it has to be mitigated. Ladies and gentlemen, please do understand that when you talk about learning and development, unless and until you are able to acknowledge that there is a problem, you cannot start finding solution to that. So the first step towards solving any problem is to acknowledge that there is one. So many a time, many organizations shy away from the need analysis, the need gap analysis, mainly because they feel either they are omnipotent, they can do anything, they do not have any problem, they are the perfection embodied into an organization, or they will see that there are a lot of things that may come up, we don't want to stir up the entire problem. So this is where typically you understand the relevance of need analysis. This was my intention in today's session. Thank you for listening to me patiently. We'll come with more details of learning and development in the next class. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.